Hi there, today I am going to show you my new Japanese tanks. These are Type 95 Hargo light tanks. They're quite cute little tanks. I've always liked Japanese tanks because they always look so strange.
They look like a heavy tank.
Yeah, well, they're a tiny little light tank. Weighed only not many tons and they were very lightweight. One interesting feature, which I'm going to get off topic now and I've only just started the video, is the suspension, which you can see on the side. The suspension of the tank was extremely loose and could go, it enabled the tank to go over very large obstacles that normally a track vehicle could have trouble with. One problem with this is the wheels tended to dip down into trenches. So as the tank went over a trench, the wheels would go all the way down to the bottom of the trench and then bounce back up again. This was a problem fighting against infantry in trenches, whereas normally a tank will drive onto a trench and then move left and right in order to crush the guys inside the trench. These guys would actually crush guys in trenches by simply driving over them.
How much can they penetrate armour through? 3.5mm of armour?
Okay, right. Its armour is about 12 to 20mm. About 20mm on the gun mantlet, which is the forward bit here, and about 10 to 12mm mostly around. They were upgraded by about 1941 when the war began against the European forces, but I don't think it ever actually exceeded 30mm, which means practically anything from a heavy machine gun upwards can penetrate the armour. So they were basically made out of tin foil, as far as that goes. However, they were very fast, not as fast as American and British. Faster than American tanks. American tanks are faster. British tanks tended to be slightly slower because they tended to be heavier. But the British didn't deploy any light tanks against them, so they could outrun the British. Also, they had a 37mm gun mounted in the turret here. The 37mm Japanese gun was actually quite a good anti-tank gun. For the period, it was pretty much the standard anti-tank gun in most tanks. The German main anti-tank gun was 37mm. The British main anti-tank gun was a 40mm gun, the 2-pounder, which is a 40mm gun. The Americans also used a 37mm. There was as the war started to grind on, the Germans and British upgraded their guns. The Germans went to 50 and then 75. The Japanese were more or less stuck with this because they couldn't fit anything else in the turret. So they was kind of stuck to this design. Although they did upgrade their medium tank. They did put a new turret on that. But that's another story. The turret, you may notice, is rather odd shaped. It's got a funny bulge towards the back right hand side. The reason for that is the machine gun in the back of the turret, just here. It didn't have a coaxial machine gun because it didn't have the room in the turret to have a forward firing machine gun. Instead, it had a machine gun in the rear, so the tank could turn its turret so the machine gun faced in whatever direction it wanted. So really, it's a machine gun armoured tank and a 37mm gun armoured tank as well. We actually found in our recent game that was actually quite useful, didn't we?
Yes, because you deployed light tanks against me.
Yeah, so it was actually quite handy, but he used his machine gun as an offensive weapon rather than his field gun against infantry, and then he turned the turret and used the 37 against my tanks.
Yeah, but I got bad rolls and I still won.
Doesn't matter. Fact is, it works, and it made sense at the time as well. Especially as the British and Americans, in the outbreak of war, and the Dutch, very seldom sent tanks to fight the Japanese. There weren't that many tanks around. The British believed that you couldn't use tanks in jungle warfare, and so the Japanese tanks drove all over the British. And so having a machine gun is way more important than having an anti-tank gun on your tank. And so that proves that the Japanese were right in their original design. So during the Battle of Malaya, the Japanese had no real reason to use their main tank gun. They needed a machine gun because they were mainly fighting infantry and field guns. So actually, good design tank. it may get a lot of laughs. People do make fun of Japanese tanks, just as the way they make fun of Italian tanks. But Japanese tanks were quite well designed. They were relatively reliable, unlike British tanks that broke down continuously. They were quite reliable, and when a tank broke down, you'd just strip the parts out and stick them in another tank, which is what the British had to do with their own tanks, even when they weren't in combat. Also, they were designed to go more or less anywhere. As I said, the suspension was really, really good. It was really bouncy, and so the tanks could drive through jungles, jungle paths that had been cleared by infantry, and the tanks could drive along these little tiny jungle paths, and they could bounce over logs and things without any actual trouble, although the rider and the guy on the gun probably got a headache from constantly banging his head on the roof. Incidentally, one of the guys in one of these tanks, the tank commander, actually captured 7 bridges in 2 hours, was it? By driving his tank up to the bridges and machine gunning the bridges, and then at one point he actually got out of his tank and charged the guys trying to demolish the bridge with a sword, which would have been interesting to watch. Handy little tank. It was basically Japan's main battle tank at the outbreak of war. It was Japan's main battle tank throughout the war with China, for most of the war, and it was Japan's main battle tank when fighting against the Russians. So it's pretty much the workhorse of the Japanese tank army, and it's also handy for supporting infantry if you're not doing a tank versus tank battle. So it is an overall good tank, and I've designed 3 of them. That's these 3 here. You can see them. They're quite nice little things. Again, I've made them out of modelling clay and card, and it was quite easy to do. I thought it would be quite difficult to do because of the weird shape of the hull, but it actually turned out quite easy, and I'm quite happy with them. And we have used one so far, and
and it won.
Yes, it did very well.
Wall.
Yes, because the Chinese troops it was fighting against had lost their field gun. So yeah, quite handy little vehicle. So that is my little presentation on my Japanese light tanks. I've got a flag on the back as well. That's my little group of Japanese tanks, which is quite nice, and I am thoroughly enjoying playing with the one I've got so far, and I'm sure I'm going to get the rest of them in battle soon enough. So look out for a battle report, and if we can get round to it, we'll have a go at having a really big pitch battle with tanks for bolt action, and I think that'll be quite a fun one to do. So that's enough for me. I've talked far enough for one day. Thank you very much for watching. Please click like if you like it, and leave any messages you like, and subscribe. That's been me talking. Thank you very much.